Hey, second grade science writers. Welcome to Writing Lesson 8. You have learned so much already about writing like a scientist. Let's do a quick review. Can you tell me what the first thing a scientist writer does? That's right. A scientist writer asks a question. That's the very first thing a scientist writer does, and they share their question in writing so that everyone knows the question they're going to be exploring. What's the second thing a science writer does? Creates a hypothesis, or makes a guess or prediction about what probably is going to happen during the experiment. Do you remember the third thing? List the materials. That's right. You tell everyone all the materials that you're going to need for your experiment. That way, if they decide to do the experiment, they know what to get. What's the fourth thing you do? Great job. That's right. You list out the steps of your procedure. You tell exactly what to do. So again, if someone else wants to do it, they can follow the same steps as you and see if they get the same of the next step. What's the next step? Results. That's right. What exactly happened when you followed the procedure? Then if someone else does the same experiment and follows the same procedure, you can see if they get the same results. Well, guess what? There is one more really important step that we have to take as science writers in sharing our results. We have to have a conclusion. A conclusion is when you think about all of the things that happened during your experiment. You take all the information you've learned, you think carefully about it, and you come up with a new idea that you now have based on what you've learned. Today I'm going to teach you how you can write a conclusion and share with others the new idea that you have based on your experiment. That's our goal for today. I can provide a conclusion to my lab report that teaches the reader what I have learned. I'm going to teach you today to write some awesome conclusions. There are a couple steps you can take to do that. The first thing you do is you tell if your hypothesis is true or false. One of the ways that you can say this is, at first I thought, and you share what your hypothesis was. Then you say if it was right or if it was wrong. After that, you give information about what happened. You might start with what happened was, and just say something very short about what happened, because remember, you gave all the really specific details in your results page, so now you can just summarize what happened. After that, you tell something that you learned. I learned that, and tell what you learned by doing the experiment. And then you can wrap it up by sharing your own thinking. This is your new idea that you have. This makes me think. So when you think about your experiment, what new idea do you get now that you've done the experiment? By following these 4 steps, you can make an awesome conclusion. All right, let me show you how to write an awesome conclusion by going back to one of the experiments we've already done. I'm going to think about the experiment we did when we were thinking about how the sun heated the earth. Do you remember how we left a thermometer in water, in soil, and in air and decided which of those heated up the most? And we discovered that the thermometer that was left in the air actually heated up more than the water in the soil. All right, let me show you how to write an awesome conclusion by going back to one of the experiments we've already done. I'm going to think about the experiment we did when we were thinking about how the sun heated the earth. Do you remember how we left a thermometer in water, in soil, and in air and decided which of those heated up the most? And we discovered that the thermometer that was left in the air actually heated up more than the water in the soil. I'm going to show you how to write a conclusion page for that experiment, so you'll have an idea of how to write one for the experiment that we just did. So just like always, I need to put a label on my page so that I know what page of my report this is going to be. So I'm going to write at the top, conclusion. And remember, on that lab experiment, or that lab report, I was using blank paper. So I wanted to get another page of blank paper so it matched. I'm going to leave some space for a sketch and to add some of those things, and now I'm ready to do the writing. First, I have to tell if my hypothesis is true or not. So I'm going to start by saying, at first I thought, and remind them what my hypothesis was. At first, comma, because that's a phrase, I thought the sun would heat the water the most. That was what my hypothesis was, but that was not correct, was it? So I need to say that. This wasn't, and I'm going to add a contraction there, so I need an apostrophe. This wasn't correct. So now I'm ready for step 2. Give information about what happened. What happened was, and remember, I don't have to share all the results. I can just summarize quickly. What happened was the air, I have to remember what I was going to say. What happened was the air heated to 95 degrees while the water only heated to 78 degrees. So now I told what happened, I needed to say what I learned. And what I learned was that the air actually heats warmer than the water. So I say it like that. I learned that air, I should say that the sun heats the air. That the sun heats the air more than the water. So now I'm ready for the last step. Include your own thinking. Well, if I'm thinking about the sun heating the air and the sun heating the water, and I put those ideas together, what I am thinking is, I think this is probably why we go swimming on hot days, right? Because that keeps us cool. I'm going to add my own thinking at the end. This makes me think that is why we go swimming to stay cool on hot days. Now I have an awesome conclusion. Okay, writers, your turn. Time for you to do your independent writing. Here's the job I want you to do today. First, I want you to label a piece of paper with the title Conclusion, because this is where you're going to write your awesome conclusion. I want you to follow the steps we just talked about to write an awesome conclusion about our water evaporation experiment. This is the one that we've been doing over the last 2 lessons. Tell if your hypothesis was true or false. Give some information about what happened, so just brief summary of the results. Tell what you learned, and then include your own thinking, your new idea that you have now that you completed this experiment. You can go ahead and add a sketch to go along with your conclusion. And when you have that page all completed, I want you to add it to your water evaporation lab report. Make sure after you complete this, you come back to the Nearpod to reflect on your lesson. I want to hear what your new ideas are. All right? Head off, awesome writers. Make some awesome conclusions and have a great time.